And welcome to the Dr. Bob Show. There's an epidemic of obesity in the United States. We're getting heavier and heavier. When's the last time you stepped on the scales? Did they not say what you wanted to say? Are you getting overweight? Are you heavier than you were 10 years ago? Is it because you're not exercising? Is it because you're eating improperly? We'll be spending most of this show talking about how we need to be eating, the difference in diets and changes in lifestyle. My guest is Lee Murphy. She has her master's in public health and also is a licensed and registered nutritionist and dietitian. She'll be answering all questions and you're gonna love her. Hello, I'm Dr. Robert Overholt and I'll be your host for the next 30 minutes on the Dr. Bob Show. Later on, we'll be talking about, is being overweight leading us to snore, or is snoring leading us to be overweight? And causes of anemia. A lot of information for you. It's going to be a great show. We're talking with Lee Murphy, Masters in Nutrition, registered nutritionist and dietitian. Lee, welcome to the Dr. Bob Show.
Thank you.
In your opinion, what does it take to have a patient be successful or a person be successful in managing weight or managing their eating?
The most important factor is really finding your motivation. I wish it was the same answer for everyone, but it really is an individual choice. Do I want to be healthy because I need to lose weight, because I want to prevent heart disease, because I want to prevent cancer, or when I treat or cure one of these diseases? What is my motivation to be the healthiest I can be? And
can motivation be I want to look better?
Absolutely,
I want to be the same person that my wife married.
That's right.
I want to have the same weight. I want to have the same muscles, and I want her to be the same like that. When I think of dietitians, they don't like the word diet. Do you put people on a diet, or do you not like that word?
I think dietitians don't like the word diet because no one really likes the word diet. It just kind of gives us a feeling of something you're not comfortable with and something you're maybe a change for you. And so we like lifestyle change is what is a great thing to emphasize.
When I look at medicine, when I look at nutrition, when I look at diets or the word diet, I hear the word Mediterranean diet and I hear the word DASH diet, both of which are heart healthy and our healthy diet in general, so that we can know what is a Mediterranean or a DASH diet.
Both diets are really focused in whole grains and unsaturated healthy fats, which come mainly from oils. They are very based in fruits and vegetables, several servings of each fruits and vegetables a day.
So fruits and vegetables, and everybody knows that they're good for you. Should we be eating them? How many of those?
The DASH diet, which DASH actually stands for Dietary Approaches to Stopping Hypertension, is what DASH stands for. And so the actual servings is 4 to 5 servings of fruits and 4 to 5 servings of vegetables per day in that diet.
Oh, give me 4 or 5 fruits during the day. When would I eat them? Give me an example.
A good idea, if you have maybe some fruit for breakfast, a couple.
Like what?
Like maybe, it depends on the individual, and I hesitate because I don't want to tell someone some bananas and you don't like bananas. So if berries is your favorite, you really want to eat what you're going to keep with and make it a lifestyle change.
Would a melon be okay?
Melon would be great, berries would be great, apples, oranges, citrus. The big deal is for those—
Pineapple?
Pineapple's
great. I love that for
great.
breakfast.
Those 4 to 5 choices of both fruits and vegetables, it's great for them to be different and even different colors, because each color represents a different phytochemical that's helping our body.
Can I have V8 juice, that really tastes good? It's a little different than tomato juice and it has good advertising. Is it good for you?
Well, I like to count juice, period, for 1 serving a day for all those 4 to 5 servings, because juice, you're missing out on dietary fiber and a lot of other nutrients that are coming in the whole chewing part of the food. So juices can be allowed, but I try not to allow it to count more than 1 of those servings per day.
We left out meats and we left out the good kinds of protein. So tell me, is that on purpose? Is protein bad for you?
No, protein is definitely a focus for both of them, but with Mediterranean, we really focus on seafoods and nuts and legumes and beans. And the seafoods mainly for the unsaturated fats, those omega-3s that are really good for our heart health. And the beans and legumes and seeds offer dietary fiber, other phytonutrients, and some good fats as well.
If I had a cup of beans and a cup of steak, which would give me the most protein? About the same, or would one be better than the other?
The reason sometimes that we kind of look down on red meat every day is mainly because of the saturated fat that's tied in with that red meat. The protein part is phenomenal. You absorb it very well, and it can do a lot of great things for your body in terms of purposes. But
So let's throw the red beef out of there, and let's get some other meats that we can chew on, and that would be chicken and fish.
yes.
Now, I've got a piece of chicken here. Is that a normal sized chicken, or that looks pretty big to me? Is that bigger? How big should the piece be?
That probably is normal for what we get at a restaurant, but not normal for what we should eat, right? What we should consume. The standard size serving of portion of protein is about the size of the palm of a woman's hand or a deck of cards.
Oh no,
a
you
woman's heart. I know,
you
sorry,
said a
not
woman's
your
hand. Oh no.
And that skin on there, we don't really want to have.
Why don't we want skin in chicken? My wife always cuts the skin off the
Good for
chicken
her.
when
Way to
she
go.
eats. Is chicken better than fish, or is fish better than chicken?
Fish has a lot of those other good fats in it that we want to encourage. So if you could choose between the two, the recommendation is for a couple of servings of fish a week in all of your protein choices. And most people, and that's unfried fish. And most people, it's a hard
I've got
time.
a salmon steak here. I think if I could get probably 3 decks of cards, maybe 2.5 decks of cards. So we've really got to cut it into a small portion.
That's right.
Now, if I eat a small portion like that, I'm still hungry. What's your advice to me about how to eat? Because I think this is the key issue in changing lifestyle, is knowing how to eat. So do you tell a person how to eat? What period of time should it take?
So, well, and that size of the palm of your hand or a deck of cards is about 3 ounces. And most people need 5 to 6 ounces a day of the protein food. So you can have more than one of those a day. But if you're still after your one serving size, we really need to think about filling our plate more with fruits and vegetables and less energy dense foods and more nutrient dense foods, and that means they have a lot of vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals in them. So we don't want anyone to go hungry, whether you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, whatever the case may be. We don't need to be starving all day long, but we just need to make great choices.
Let's talk about eggs. First of all, what is good and bad about eggs?
The best part, in my opinion, of the egg is the egg white. That is the protein. And actually, egg white protein is the most biologically available for our body to be used. So it is one of the best protein sources in our whole diet that we can consume.
Should I eat it raw if it's available, or should I
It's
cook
best
it?
to cook it.
Okay, so so you can take the yolk out. Actually, when you break an egg, you can do it that way. What's bad in the yolk? It's got cholesterol in it.
It does. The yolk, it has a lot of vitamins and minerals in it also. So the yolk isn't all bad, but the reason it kind of gets a bad rep is because of that cholesterol that it has in there.
How many eggs a week do you, in general, recommend that somebody has if they had the whole egg?
Well, it kind of depends on their risk for heart disease, because some individuals...
If they're just a normal person, 40 years old, everybody's at risk when they get to be 40, a little bit overweight. Tell me about that egg.
I am okay having an egg a day. I really am. If you have if scrambled egg, you like scrambled eggs, you can have 1 egg with maybe 2 egg whites and extend that egg. So it tastes like scrambled egg, but it's actually a lot more. You get more double or triple the protein.
The different egg sizes have different calories.
They do. There's about 10 calories difference between a large and a jumbo and an extra large, and there's about 1 calorie of fat. 1 gram of fat difference. There's 5 to 6 grams of fat in all of those, so it's not huge, but.
Does the egg white taste as good as a regular egg? I don't know.
The egg white really doesn't have a lot of taste, honestly. You know, if you have a boiled egg and the egg white, a lot of times it doesn't have a huge amount of taste. But if you add it with 1 yolk and have 2 egg whites, then it tastes just like a regular scrambled egg.
If I had 3 egg whites, would that not be bad for me in the morning?
That would be great.
Hey,
that would be a wonderful source of very good protein.
Okay, I like toast with my eggs. Toast is in what part of the information we're trying to get over? Grains?
Grains.
Tell me about what you mean by the word grain. They're confusing to me and to everybody. When we look at, there's so many different kind of breads. There's whole wheat and whole grain and whole this, and Tell me about it.
And someone explained to me the difference between whole wheat and whole grain is the difference between a carrot and a vegetable. In that a whole wheat is a whole grain. So basically, the whole grain, that definition means you take the whole kernel of wheat, say, and grind it up and process it into flour. So, and that includes all the dietary fiber and nutrients. When you refine a bread and make it to white bread, you are taking away that outside shell with all that good fiber.
So I take it if I buy flour in the store, that's refined flour. If I make my own bread, it's not going to be whole grain?
Well, you can buy whole wheat flour now. You used to not be able to, but now that white flour is typically refined. But you can buy whole wheat flour. You can buy white whole wheat flour, which is still whole wheat and a great choice.
Grab that loaf of bread there. You've got some Arnold 100% whole wheat bread. Let me look at that. And let me everybody show it. It's got a special on there at the store. Is this good bread?
It is good bread.
Why?
The 100% is important for whole wheat because a lot of breads are labeled wheat bread, and most breads are wheat bread. White bread is wheat bread also, but it needs to say 100% whole wheat, which means it has that whole grain in it and it has that dietary fiber and good vitamins and minerals.
You and I were talking about bread, and I bought some bread here at the store, and I walked by the aisle, and I saw some sourdough bread, and we looked at it, and it wasn't as good for me as the other bread. Why?
And the first thing you want to look at is that ingredients list, because on this whole wheat version, the first list on the ingredients on the nutrition panel says whole wheat flour.
And what does this say?
This one says unbleached enriched wheat flour. And it's very complicated.
Unbleached.
Unbleached enriched wheat flour.
So that means it's not whole wheat, and so that's not as good for me as the other.
Correct.
I like to sometimes put butter on toast. Should I be putting it on, or does it really add anything?
It does add some saturated fat.
That was bad. So we don't want saturated fat, do we?
Right. The saturated fat is the bad for our heart fat.
The butter substitute, Smart Balance. I can't believe it's butter. Are those good for you?
Those have some good points in them. Some of them have some unsaturated fats added. Some of them do not have trans fats, and trans fats are really bad for our heart disease
So you
risk.
want to look for trans fats? That's a no-no.
That's right.
You want to
No
look for saturated fats? A no-no.
low.
And you want to look for unsaturated, and that's what you're really looking for.
That is correct.
I've gotten off track. I want to get back to, I like to put a little salt on my egg. So here or salt on my steak, or salt on my beans. Tell me, how much salt are we supposed to get a day? What should we limit our salt to?
The recommendation is 2,300 milligrams in a day.
Now, 2,300 milligrams is how much? A tablespoon?
It is about 1 teaspoon.
Now, whoa.
And what we're not even counting is what is already in the food that we're consuming. This is if you're making everything from scratch on your own. The over 75% of the sodium we get in a day, probably more than that for most people, comes from the foods that we consume in restaurants, in processed foods like macaroni and cheese and things that are already partly made for you. They have a lot of added sodium. So that doesn't even, if you're salting your food, you're well over that limit for sure.
Oh, so there are some salts that don't have sodium. Give me a couple of examples.
Well,
does sea salt have sodium?
Yeah, sea salt does have sodium.
Oh, no.
So sea salt sometimes is thought of a healthier choice, but for the sodium purpose, it's not.
All right, now here's a salt substitute. What does that mean, salt substitute?
Most salt substitutes have potassium to replace the sodium, and potassium is a wonderful nutrient that actually can help to lower your blood pressure. And that's a lot of these diets that are high in fruits and vegetables are high in potassium and help with that process.
Does it taste like salt?
It does. It does have, and then there's other.
Dash, this says lemon pepper dash. It has no
sodium. Then that's herb based. So that is like adding. You could do that on your own. Add your own natural herbs if you wanted to, or any from your garden. But that does it for you in a condensed form. So those are both great options.
Let's talk about milk. Different kinds of milk. There's whole milk. There is 2% milk. There's 1% milk. There's fat-free skim milk. Tell me about milk. What's good and what's bad?
Milk is a great source of lots of nutrients, including carbohydrates and protein and calcium as a micronutrient. But the difference between all those you just listed is the fat content. There's no difference between whole milk and skim milk except for that saturated fat. And so we want to choose the less fat choices because the fat that's in the whole milk is the saturated fat that's bad for our hearts.
Now, I only drink skim milk, and there's nothing like a glass of cold skim milk. It just tastes, I mean, it tastes so good that sometimes that's the best part of the meal at home. But some people that drink skim milk said it tastes like water, or they want whole milk because it's got that fullness and that creaminess. How do you convert?
And well, there are actually some in-between milks. The 2% and the 0.5% milk, those will taste a little bit in between. And there's also skim milks that have protein solids added that make it taste thicker. So there are those available in the grocery store too.
Let's talk about other drinks. Let's talk about Coca-Cola. It could be Pepsi-Cola. We're not pushing any brands. It could be anything. Are Cokes bad for you?
Unfortunately, yes.
Why?
Because of the added sugars.
Okay, so they have a lot of sugars and a lot of calories. Is it the sugar that's bad? Is the calories bad? It's a combination
It's
of
a
both?
combination. The sugars provide the calories. And if the serving size that you're holding is 2.5 servings on the label, and you're probably going to drink that whole thing at once.
No.
So it's certainly a couple hundred plus calories that.
So a serving size of this one says it's 240 calories for the serving size. Is water better than Coke?
Absolutely. Water's providing so much more. Coke is called empty calories because it's just providing you calories and nothing else. Water is providing hydration for your body, and the list goes on and on for the purposes that we use water for.
Let's talk about diet beverages. Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi, Zero Cokes. They have sweetening substitutes. They have sugar substitutes. Are those good for you or bad for you from a dietitian and a nutrition standpoint?
But sometimes we have to be a little careful because if we are, they certainly lower the calories, which is a great thing. You'd rather have the no calories if you're looking at your calorie load for the day. But sometimes the sweetness can trick us into wanting more sweets. And so if we need to just go cold turkey and stick with water, that might be a better option for a lot of people.
Let's talk about alcoholic beverages. Let's talk about wine, or let's talk about hard alcohol. I personally don't like alcohol. I don't drink alcohol, but a lot of Americans do. Are they bad for you from a calorie standpoint and from a nutrition standpoint?
We certainly can get extra calories in our diet from alcohol also because of the fact that sometimes there's sugar added to the alcohol sometimes, and even if not, those are calories that aren't providing much more for us nutritionally than calories alone. So if we're looking for nutrient density, we like to choose our products a little more wholly.
Now, I want to talk about snacks. So what's a good snack?
A good snack is to combine a carbohydrate and a protein.
Carbohydrate and a protein. So tell me what that means.
Example, and that means a carbohydrate would be a fruit or a whole grain or even some vegetable with a protein food that's going to keep you fuller longer and also provide you with proteins that you need for the day.
Apple, would that be good?
Apple with peanut butter is a great idea.
Now, why peanut butter? I thought peanut butter is sort of a fatty old food.
Peanut butters, but I would rather you have this peanut butter actually. This is natural peanut butter.
Okay, this is Jiffy Extra Crunchy. I like Jiffy Extra Crunchy, but I'll go to Jiffy Natural or some other kind of natural.
Natural. And the
Peter Pan just as good, you know. So this is natural peanut butter.
And it doesn't have the hydrogenated oils that sometimes the regular peanut butter has in it. And the hydrogenated oils have sometimes that bad fat, trans fat, that's bad for our heart.
So a snack would be fruits, and we can have berries, blueberries. They really taste good. If you get a good batch of blueberries, there's nothing like it. Bananas are good, apples good, apples with peanut butter are good.
Vegetable, any kind of vegetable. The more vegetables in your life, the better. So
how can you snack on a vegetable? What do you mean? You cook it and put it out there where you can come by nibble?
Or even just a plate of cut vegetables like carrots. You can buy the baby carrots that are just open the bag and you don't even have to peel them. Certainly you could go through the effort of doing that also. But the convenient vegetables are a great thing because they are very accessible and you don't have to do anything to them. So those small carrots or the things that are in bags already that have already been processed a little bit in terms of cut up already for you. If you don't have time to do that, if you do, that's great.
Lee, before we end, I have to have you teach me, how do you order at a restaurant and how do you order at a fast food? And let's not talk about breakfast, let's talk about after school or supper snack?
We really want to focus on fruits and vegetables as much as possible.
Can't do that at McDonald's.
I
and
know it's
Hamburger.
hard. You can still though get, there's always a salad that you can have. Now you don't have to eat salads all the time, but having that as part of your side, a lot of the establishments now allow you to have fruits instead of another side dish,
Well,
which is
they
great.
do, don't they?
Potatoes. Chili, some of the places that has bean based, they all have their nutrition information either on the menu or available to you. So either whether it's a fast food or an established restaurant, if you can do a little research beforehand, that's the hard part is you get caught very hungry and it kind of all goes downhill very quickly. So
And an established sit-down restaurant, bread,
we want to be careful about that. Sometimes it's best just to ask them not to even bring it if you're
salad dressing.
Yes, again, another one that can add a lot of calories. So either on the side or get something that's light or certainly ask the question is important.
Lee, thank you for coming to the Dr. Bob Show. I wish we didn't have to cut this off because you're such a good teacher. Thank you for taking your time. We need to follow your instructions and be better fed people.
Thanks.
We're talking with Meredith Wallace. Meredith, welcome to the Dr. Bob Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
When did you decide that you wanted to change your eating habits?
When I was about 22 years old and realized I was about 30 pounds heavier than what I really wanted to be and wanted to change my lifestyle for that reason.
So you've changed your eating habits. Have you lost that 30 pounds that you were overweight?
I did.
How many meals a day do you eat?
Usually 5 to 6.
And what do you have for snacks?
Usually for snacks, I'll have a little bit of Greek yogurt and some berries, maybe a few nuts, and then some kind of a healthy whole food protein bar without any junk in it.
For breakfast, lunch, and supper, you try and eat what kind of, how do you guide your eating?
Usually, again, based upon whole foods that are unprocessed, having some protein and carbohydrates and some fruits and plenty of vegetables throughout the day with each of those meals.
If you find yourself in a situation where there's going to be some bad foods, if you're eating out with people or where you just have to go to a fast food, how do you attack that? What do you allow yourself to do?
You have to make the best choice possible in trying to find some kind of a vegetable, some kind of a whole food like a salad. Even if you have to get a grilled chicken sandwich, something like that, just take it off the bun, eat it with the salad, and then you've got a nice healthy meal without any junk, no added dressing or anything like that, because typically those aren't very good for you.
Your advice for people on how to eat properly?
Try to stick to whole foods and make the best choice possible in whatever scenario that you're in, because it can't always happen, but you can always make the best choice.
Meredith Wallace, you certainly look like you've made the great choices. Thank you for coming to the Dr. Bob Show.
Thank
and
you.
thank you for helping us learn how to eat better and eat healthier.
Yes, and if anybody wants to come and get any kind of a wellness evaluation or any kind of nutritional counseling from me, I also work at the health shop, so
Great.
that would be wonderful.
Meredith, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
I want to thank Lee Murphy. Wonderful discussion on eating properly for our health. And now from questions from you, the viewer, that I think will be important to your health. Question number 1, Dr. Bob, is there a connection between obesity, being overweight, and obstructive sleep apnea? Well, let's talk about that because that's a very perceptive question. There's a lot of information about snoring, obstructive sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is where the back of the throat falls against itself and we actually stop breathing at nighttime. Those are habitual snorers. There's 3 things that cause snoring. Bad nose, it can be allergy, it can be a crooked nose, it can be trauma, it can be polyps. Bad throat, the uvula gets too big, the back of the throat falls back against itself, or obesity. Now, if we have sleep apnea because of snoring and because of being overweight, the sleep apnea can also cause obesity. If sleep apnea causes obesity and obesity causes sleep apnea, then it's a vicious cycle. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse. What happens with sleep apnea is the hormones that make us think we're full don't work. And when we have sleep apnea, there's insulin resistance. Insulin doesn't work. And so it gets high, and that makes us hungry. So both things make us hungry. We get hungry, we get overweight, we snore more, we get sleep apnea. If you're overweight and you snore, I think you might think about getting a sleep study. Question number 2. Dr. Bob, my doctor says I have anemia. Well, what is anemia? It's a very common thing. You can have anemia at all ages. That's because there are not enough red blood cells. We need red blood cells in the body to carry around oxygen. The percentage of red blood cells that we want is called hematocrit. We want it at about 42, 45%. If it gets below 30, we're anemic. If we're anemic, we don't carry around enough blood. If we don't carry around enough blood, we may feel weak, we may feel tired, we may feel short of breath, we may look pale, we may not feel good. Your doctor will routinely get your blood count. If he states you have anemia, you need to be sure that we find the cause. That's all the time that we have for this show. Remember, we need to be exercising. We need to exercise 30, 40, 50 minutes, 7 days a week. Exercise will make you feel better, you'll sleep better, your heart will perform better. Eat properly, eat well, use nutrition as part of your life. Get 8 hours of sleep. If you get 8 hours of sleep, you'll perform better and you'll be better at work. And most of all, what is it we like in the Dr. Bob Show? It's that laughter in your life. Find somebody that you love, tell funny stories, laugh a lot, giggle. You'll find how much more fun life is and how much more fun it is to be healthy.